All right, next question is for Congressman Hoekstra. That gentleman over there has just been aching to ask a question. Let's get him in.
Hello. My question is, I just recently served on a board which closed 4 schools at the Utica Community Schools because of budgetary issues. And my question is, how do you propose to solve the teachers' retirement time bomb and the health insurance increases between 17 and 18%, given that all of these are union contracts?
You're going to have to go to the unions, and very straightforward. You got 2 things. Number 1, the retirement time bomb is a legal requirement to pay. The health care one is a moral requirement, but it's not a legal requirement. It's moral in that we've made the agreement that we are going to pay that, but it is not legally binding, at least to my understanding. And what it's going to do, it's going to take that you're going to have to sit down with the unions face to face and go through the process and they're going to have to recognize that they have to get to a settlement or it is all at risk. Okay? It's it's nothing easy about that. There's nothing easy about any of the problems that are facing Michigan today, except for the last number of years, 7 years, 4 months, 15 days, 3 months, 15 days, whatever it is, there's been a lack of leadership in willing to address the hard problems to get Michigan moving forward. It's going to take an ingredient that's been missing in the state, which is called leadership.
The next question is for everybody. And let's, we haven't gone way to the back of the room yet, Ken. Let's get somebody way in the back who, right back there on the white. Way back. That lady right there is waving at you. The one who's now winking at you.
Thank you. My question is, are you pro-life? And if you are, how long have you been pro-life? And if so, how committed are you to staying pro-life?
This is for everybody. Can I add something too? How much does that stance matter on a state level, given that we have Roe v. Wade, which has set a national precedent for the issue of life?
Well, I think it matters a great deal in terms of what your convictions are. And to your question, I'm pro-life. I've always been pro-life. I'm always going to be pro-life. I've been endorsed in every election by Right to Life. I was the first state rep from my district that was pro-life since Roe v. Wade. In one campaign, I had Paula Blanchard and Helen Milliken campaigning against me, so I figured I must have been doing something right. So to answer your question, but to your question specifically, there are things that occasionally come up, and occasionally we fight. Partial birth abortion, Dr. Kevorkian. I was there in the middle of all that when we banned those things. So some things can be done on a state level, and we have and will in the future. But you're right, Frank. My job and my focus on a daily basis, on the first minute I sit in a chair, is jobs, getting the state back to work.
Frank, clearly Roe versus Wade is there, but I'm a big believer that how we treat the least amongst us is a measurement of our society. And the question, how long have you been Right to Life? Well, I was born Irish Catholic, so it started then. And I expect I'm going to die Irish Catholic, so it will end then. I'm proud to say that my office, defended the people's override of Jennifer Granholm on the partial birth abortion ban. And I'm proud that we took it all the way to the Supreme Court. We lost in the federal district court here. We lost in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. We took it to the Supreme Court. They turned us down. But right after that, the Senate came in with the federal partial birth abortion ban under President Bush. So I will continue, absolutely, we ought to clap about that. I will continue to fight on and work with Right to Life as I have since long before I was elected, and with your help. to office in 2002. Thank you.
I have a 100% pro-life voting record. I have a pro-life record in the private sector. As a practicing physician, I've always refused to participate in providing anesthesia for abortion services in my community. For 5 years, I worked as a hospice physician, providing compassionate care to the terminally ill who were dying at home, and I chaired the local coalition against the assisted suicide measure in my community. It was before I was in the legislature. And while in the legislature, you heard in 2008, I chaired the coalition that opposed the embryonic stem cell measure. And Frank asked the question, how important is it? Given the protections and the things that are in the Constitution, given Supreme Court rulings, it is important. Because despite that, Michigan can put fences in the law around abortion and even some around embryonic stem cell research. For example, we have a 24-hour consent requirement, a consent for minors requirement. We have voted to ban partial birth abortions. And regarding embryonic stem cell research, even though the measure was adopted, there's no definition for how consent is obtained from donors. That's something the legislature can add. It's a bill I'm working on now. It's in the state legislature right now. We're likely to vote on it next week. So as a citizen legislature, I bring a legislative record and a record of activism from the private sector on this issue. Thank you.
It's absolutely critical. From my perspective, life begins at conception. That's defined my life, and it's defined my life in politics. All right? So there's no question about that. I've got a 100% voting record. Why is it important for us to still pay attention to it? Because the other side is always trying to find ways to influence the social mores, the social mores. The late 90s. OBGYNs, their professional licensing organization, what do they want to do? They want to say that part of the licensing procedure, part of the training that doctors or wannabe doctors need to go through is they have to perform live-induced abortions. They have to be part of the process as part of the licensing. They want to, they want to minimize and neutralize and get people to accept it. We fought it, we stopped it. All right? This last election, 2010 or 2008, when we elect Obama, it's all about hope and change. It's all about jobs. All right? That was the campaign. That's the only thing we need to focus on. In some ways, it sounds like the only important issue in Michigan today is jobs. Be careful when you say it's all about this and we don't have to worry about that because either we've won that or that's not important anymore. Look what happened, 4 weeks ago when we passed health care. We passed the biggest pro-abortion legislation in the United States in probably a lifetime. Thank you.
All right, 12 minutes left. So I'm going to do this democratically the way you'd expect.